Another game published by THQ that also got a remaster this year. It's funny to think how within a month we've gone from bringing back the child-friendly SpongeBob Squarepants in Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated to the mass-murdering Cryptosporidium from Destroy All Humans. I recall first experiencing the 2005 original in a demo disc that came with the Xbox magazine. You remember those things? Each issue would let you try out various games being released or have already been put onto shelves, similar to what PlayStation were doing. Why don't we have demo discs anymore? Sadly, I no longer own that particular disc, nor do I have an original Xbox these days, but back when my brother received his copy of Destroy All Humans, he'd share it with me, and I finally got to see beyond the demo disc.
Pandemic Studios were the folks behind the 2005 original, who also did the first two Star Wars Battlefront titles before EA wanted to encourage gambling, with the 2020 remaster being done by Black Forest Games, who are pretty much only known for making and releasing Giana Sisters' Twisted Dreams a bunch of times. They're also the ones who resurrected Bubsy a few years ago in the Woolly Strike Back for God knows what reason. As for Destroy All Humans, you don't see many games like this nowadays, with cartoonishly over-the-top violence, some one-liners, and generally being a game that doesn't take itself so damn seriously all the time. Oh, there certainly are still games like that out there in today's world, but you don't notice them nearly as often as the more nitty-gritty stuff. I don't like throwing out this term a lot, but how many games do you see with a more Oscar bait feel as opposed to games that just care about being fun? Destroy All Humans is fortunately the latter of the two, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have games that tackle more serious issues. Hell, Persona 5 Royal, my favorite game of all time, has plenty of dark, depressing elements to it. But that game, and the Persona series in general, also knew when to just freaking relax for a bit. Nevertheless, more often than not, we get those games that are mostly about people being sad and miserable all the time. And while that can occasionally work, I personally would prefer something more lighthearted once in a while. Sometimes I don't want to be reminded of the cruel reality we live in and just let off some steam. Plenty of indie games provide a more cheery tone, but that line of thinking sadly doesn't interest many of the bigger developers. They instead want to use as many tactics as they can to make you feel sorry for a character or characters. Some games do this well, while others don't do it so well. The story in Destroy All Humans is about as basic as you can imagine for a game with that title. In the 1950s, an alien by the name of Cryptosporidium 136, or just Crypto 136, accidentally collides with a rocket the US Army were testing, causing it to crash land and leave the creature fatally wounded. We then cut to Orthopox 13, a high-ranking commander of the alien race known as the Furons, who witnesses the disaster from his mothership and orders the next clone in line, Crypto 137, to go down to Earth and find out what happened to Crypto 136. Don't worry, these are the only numbers you need to memorize. After extracting some human brains for research and blasting your way through the army, the Majestic become quickly aware of Crypto's antics and vow to put an end to him. The goal, of course, is to destroy all humans until you locate Crypto 136 and stop whatever Majestic and their leader Silhouette have up their sleeves. Simple story, but that's all there needs to be. It's silly, it knows it's being silly, and they go all out with it, especially towards the end of the game where things get even more crazy. There's some comedic writing to go alongside this, though it's a little hit and miss, honestly. Humor is entirely subjective, I'm aware, but for me, I chuckled at about half the jokes and just kind of ignored the ones that didn't work. I'm pretty sure most of those were just pop culture references, which, as I'm sure many comedic writers will know, doesn't always provide the best laughs. Since the game does take place in the 50s, however, that could maybe allow for some decent references that the older players might get, so naturally Pandemic Studios would make a majority of them from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Something doesn't seem right there. Sure, you do get a few 50s references here and there, including I Love Lucy, North by Northwest, Dr. Strangelove, and Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, but most of the references are from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Terminator, Aliens, The Shining, Titanic, there's even an Animaniacs reference for some reason.
What am I doing? Oh yeah, the same thing I do every night. Try to take over the world!
I bet you wouldn't expect a Half-Life reference in here either.
I mustn't be late! They're waiting for me in the test chamber! Oh wait, wrong game.
That's just a small sample of those kinds of references, and the game throws a lot at you at once. There are bound to be some preteen players that won't even get half of them. The voice acting and script's been left completely unchanged in the remaster too, but that includes some of the tinny audio and a few cutscenes with the humans. And this is weird to me because Crypto and Orthopox sound pretty clear, so why do the humans sound distorted? Was it just a free space to fit on an earlier console? While I'm on our two alien characters, Orthopox is voiced by Richard Stephen Horvitz, who you may instantly recognize the moment when he speaks, whether it be his performance as Raz from Psychonauts, Billy from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, or perhaps most notably, Invader Zim. Was it just in his contract to voice multiple alien characters? What an odd coincidence. Although, to be fair, he does seem born for this kind of thing. I don't know how else you can speak as if you're from another planet, and Orthopox's wit can be pretty funny on occasions.
Primitive, yes profound.
Crypto's delivery is, how should I put it? Perplexing. Well, first of all, he's voiced by Bien from Metal Gear Solid 3 and Baldur from Bayonetta, so wrap your head around that. But looking past it, his inflections are very abnormal, and I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. Maybe it's supposed to emphasize how much of an otherworldly being he is? Is it because Crypto's a simple clone? This is a very tricky performance to judge. I don't necessarily dislike it, and Crypto gets some good lines on the rare occasion as well, but I can't say I'm captivated either.
A cryptosporidium captured by a bunch of monkeys? We gotta go in. We gotta crack some craniums. We gotta rescue me. Him. He's gotta rescue me. I gotta...
Audio's not the only thing that feels a little off, though. I'm not sure how I feel about the remaster's new art style. I don't have much to say about the original graphics. They've definitely aged, and the movements are a bit awkward, but I guess they're fine for gaming 6th generation. Orthopox still looks okay, as well as Crypto and his saucer, and they're even more detailed in the remaster, but it's the humans that appear strange to me. It just seems like the game can't decide whether to go for a more realistic look or be more cartoonish, so they went for some kind of weird hybrid, which has worked in other games like BioShock Infinite and Kingdom Hearts with their human characters. However, while the ones in Destroy All Humans certainly look fine, for the most part, good lord that lady has a big mouth, they still kinda move as if it's a 2005 game, unless it's the plot important humans. They look pretty good, why can't the rest of the NPCs be like this? The game has a habit of reusing some of its character models as well, without any effort to hide it. I could accept this in the PS2 and Xbox days, but I expected a little more in 2020. Check this out, you have to kill a farmer in the very first mission, and then a couple missions later, he's back again. You're not even trying. And one of the NPCs is voiced by Goofy, which I now can't get out of my mind.
Now wait just a second. How in the world does any of that explain the destruction at the fair?
Okay, but all that aside, both of the Furon characters do look great, and the environments aren't too shabby either, so I'll maybe give the remaster's graphics a B+ overall. Graphics aren't the most important thing to a game anyway, even if it does help. How does the game play? Well, the first thing to mention is that there are actually more differences between the original and the remaster compared to Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Let's start with the controls. In the original Destroy All Humans, Crypto's movements were perfectly fine on the ground, but if you use his jetpack to reach higher places, he doesn't adjust his body as he's trying to turn left or right, which makes the flying rather stiff. Shooting feels okay though, albeit not quite as fine-tuned as it would be nowadays. The aiming reticle snaps to the enemy as you're firing instead of having a designated button for locking on, which works okay and you will get used to it, but this is something the remaster improves on. Not only is the jetpack easier to control since Crypto now moves his body as he's hovering, but there's also a proper lock-on system to make aiming between targets easier to do. Crypto can additionally disguise himself as a marked human with a device known as the Holobob, but only for a short amount of time, although you can extend that time by scanning someone's mind. This one's a smaller change between both versions, but disguising yourself in the remaster will sort of temporarily erase the human you targeted from existence, whereas in the original they can still be seen walking around, but no one notices two of the same human anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Just watch out for the alert meter as you're exposed. While wandering around each area in your normal form, armed forces will gradually throw out the bigger guns, starting from police cops to the army and finally the Majestic. Think of it like the star system in Grand Theft Auto, and a few missions require that you don't reach a certain point in the alert meter. The levels in the first Destroy All Humans are set up in a mission by mission structure. It's basically as it sounds, you can choose what missions to tackle, and the more you complete, the more you'll have available to you until you finish the game. There's even a brand new mission in the remaster that was cut from the original called The Wrong Stuff. It's nothing that amazing, just another stealth level, but you can perform a few Hitman-esque creative kills to the scientist. In fact, you're pretty much encouraged to do that by the new optional objectives. Every mission now has an extra goal you can reach to complete the level 100%, and also rewards you with more DNA, acting as this game's currency to purchase upgrades for Crypto's arsenal in between missions. The original Destroy All Humans didn't offer a great deal of upgrades to choose from, mostly just more damage and ammo for your guns, or for the saucer that you'll sometimes get to pilot and demolish demolish buildings, as well as whatever tools the military throws at you. The remaster definitely gives you a better variety of upgrades, and just more upgrades altogether. You even get a new boost feature to dash away from enemy attacks, or just traversing through more land in a faster time that can be further increased by purchasing more upgrades. My favorite ones have to be for the disintegrator ray though. Why does nobody talk about this gun when the topic of best gaming weapons is brought up? It burns the skin off of enemies, then turns their skeletons into ash, and with upgrades you can make it even stronger, as well as fire a spread shot like in Contra. This little destructive device really needs more love if you ask me. You probably don't want to use it in between the missions though if you want to extract more DNA from humans. Ugh, these were the worst parts of the original game. Once you complete a mission, you're allowed to freely explore one of the 5 areas in the game, but you're blocked from accessing the next mission until you acquire a certain amount of DNA. This can be done by either blowing up the humans' heads with your mind powers, using the anal probe weapon that also causes their heads to explode just a bit faster, or by doing special challenges that honestly aren't worth bothering with given how much time it takes to finish one, and not rewarding you with nearly enough DNA. My personal best method is to simply scout for these robot probes spread across the land. The maps aren't at all big, and some probes can be very close together, so you may as well keep finding those until you're ready to head to the next mission, but this can still be a pretty dull process. I get that the idea is to help you prepare for tougher missions, but I feel like that should be up to me to decide, rather than force me to go through with it. The remaster thankfully does away with all that nonsense and lets you explore the areas whenever you want to, and even presents more challenges to participate in with more DNA to win. When a mission is complete, you can move on to the next one straight away if you wish to do so. Much better. Let's talk about the missions themselves actually. About half of the game involves, well, destroying humans, whether it's preventing armed forces from pausing your hypnotic film, or kidnapping a member of the Majestic to get some answers about their plans. However, the other half is mostly staying in disguise and being stealthy, but no matter which version you play, I don't think that's Destroy All Humans' strong suit. As mentioned before, your holobob only works for a small amount of time, which means you frequently need to stop and scan mines to keep it going, but you also need to worry about restricted areas that only certain humans can go into. And on top of that, there are the EMPs that briefly jam your gear, as well as the Majestic's field of vision. If you get too close to them, they'll see through your disguise and automatically take you out of it. In the remaster, you've got a good idea of how far away you need to be from the Majestic, thanks to the minimap, but while the original also has a minimap and tells you where the Majestic are, the only hint you have of being close to them is your holobob turning red. Crypto does have psychokinesis that lifts humans and objects off the ground so you can toss them like ragdolls, but if you do that to the Majestic, that'll blow your cover. Not all of the missions require you to stay incognito the whole time, but these missions aren't nearly as enjoyable overall, especially in the original since it doesn't have checkpoints. You fail the mission, you have to start it all over again. Sometimes it isn't too big of a pain to deal with as the missions can often be fairly short, but late game missions can occasionally go on for way longer than they should do, and I'm so glad that the remaster includes checkpoints. If I had to keep working my way to the General Armquist fight like I did in the original, I would have been so pissed off. They did make the final boss a lot harder in the remaster though. It wasn't too bad in the original, it just had a crap ton of health. And the second phase was only a slightly more difficult gunfight with Majestic and robots thrown in for good measure. Yes, there are giant weaponized robots in the 1950s, just roll with it. The remaster not only has a lot of health you need to chip away, but there's 3 health bars to deplete while trying to avoid mine balloons, rockets, and anti-air guns that'll greatly damage your saucer. It's kind of a mess. The second phase on the other hand was a bit better. It's different to the original, but a lot more involved, so I don't have anything to complain about it, except that it can be slightly annoying to evade certain attacks. Also, I like how every time you die in the original, you'll always play as the next number Crypto clone, which is pretty grim if you think about it, but that's a cute little detail nonetheless. They don't bring it back in the remaster, which is a shame, but I guess it makes sense for plot purposes. Destroy All Humans as a whole, while not exactly high art and arguably not the best game around, is just there for some goofy fun. It's essentially a black comedy in video game form. The humor doesn't always work, but the gameplay is mostly solid. The sequel would end up being the better game in my opinion, but the first one can be pretty thrilling as well. It has its moments of frustration now and again with the original's age, some of the sneaking missions, and a few of the remaster's additions like potentially missing the side objectives amongst the chaos, but they're nothing that should make you launch the controller at your TV. The original Destroy All Humans is usually on sale a lot, at least in the PSN store, but if you can get your hands on the remaster, I'd definitely say that's the better option to go for. Give it a look.
I'll certainly talk about Destroy All Humans 2 at some point, and with any luck, sales for the remaster will do well enough to warrant a remaster of the second game. I'd absolutely buy that. Now's the perfect time to play the first game anyway, and I hope newcomers and fans of the original are enjoying the remaster. Right, I've had a small break now, so I should probably get back to this. See you next time. But back when my brother... got hay fever. And I hope newcomers and fans of the original are enjoying the remaster. Clementine. Now's the perfect time to play the first game anyway. Can't remember my line. And I hope newcomers and fans of the original are enjoying the remaster. I forgot my line again.